Hey, welcome back. This week we're celebrating my brother-in-law's 80th birthday party, and he asked me to do a couple of items for him. Today, I'm gonna make a brown beef stock, and we're gonna use the stock to make a couple items for his birthday. Today, we have about 5 pounds of beef bones with some beef on it. We have our mirepoix. Today's mirepoix, I've got about 50% onion, 25% celery, and 25% carrot. Basically, I've got about 2 medium onions, 2 stalks of celery, and 2 carrot sticks. We also have some tomato paste. As you can see in the mirepoix, I've got a little larger cut because they're gonna be in the stock a little longer. So you always wanna make sure the longer it's gonna be in there, have a larger cut. And that'll just be able to infuse the flavor, but also they won't disintegrate. Our first step, I've got a roasting pan here. We're gonna roast the bones and get a nice colorization on them. What we're gonna do is lay out in the pan an even layer, a single layer. You don't wanna stack it. So the bones go in. And then what we're gonna do, we're gonna gently kind of drizzle some olive oil on them. You know, a lot of people use just a nondescript oil that, doesn't infuse that much flavor on it. But today, that's what I have. So then I'm gonna take the bones and I'm gonna kind of toss them over a little bit, and then I'm gonna drizzle them again. So all sides of the bones get a little oil on them. Just like that. Hey, our next step, we're gonna put the bones that we lightly oiled up, we're gonna put those in a 400-degree oven. And what we're gonna do, once I put them in the oven, I'm gonna roast them for maybe about 20 minutes, toss them around to kind of get the other side a little brown, and then I'm gonna show you what we're gonna do with the tomato paste and the mirepoix. Okay, now our next step. I've had the bones roasting in the oven for 20 minutes, then I toss them around and another 20 minutes. I'm getting ready to pull them out and I'll show you what we're doing next. We have a really good flavor, a really good aroma on them. They got a nice color. And that's gonna help make that dark stock we are. I'm gonna take about 3 tablespoons or so of tomato paste. Now the tomato paste, when we're adding it, it does 3 things. There are 3 jobs to the tomato paste. 1, it adds some flavor. 2, it adds a little more color. And 3, the acid in the tomato paste. It helps break down the beef fibers, and that makes it produce a little more gelatin in the stock. So let me toss that with that. All right. And once we get this tossed around, we're gonna put it back in the oven and let it continue roasting for another 15 minutes. Okay, I've pulled it out of the oven after the tomato paste had been in there for about 15 minutes. The careful thing you wanna make sure is you don't burn the tomato paste when you're doing that. Now, I'm gonna take the mirepoix and I'm gonna add the mirepoix directly into the pan and kind of mix those around together. And as you see, why I cut the mirepoix in a little bigger pieces, that was to really make sure that the vegetables, while they're in the oven, they're not disintegrating or anything. They still hold their shape a little bit, so they can release flavor, but they stay together. Okay, now that I've mixed that around, it's back in the oven for another 15 to 20 minutes. Okay, I've taken it out of the oven. It was in for another 20 minutes with the mirepoix roasting. Now the next item we're gonna do is I'm going to take the contents out of here, not to get any of the liquid or the fat. And I'll show you what I'm going to do with that in a little bit. Just take those and put those directly in the stock pan, or the stock pot. I don't have anything in the stock pot, nothing at this point in time. I'll show you what I do with that in just a minute. Things roasted up really nicely. Got some nice color there. Now, a lot of people don't add the mirepoix at this time to the stock pot. I like to do it. I like the flavor that it gives. Some people wait and they add the cold water and then let the beef cook for a little while in the stock pot, and then add the mirepoix sometime later afterwards. But what I like to do is add it together and let it, for the whole time, let it cook together. All right, now I put the contents in the stock pot. I just got that out of the way a little bit for me. And what I'm next gonna do is I'm just gonna drain off the fat. Now, in this, we're not going to use the fat in this recipe at all. But the reason I want to get the fat off, I'm going to show you what I do with this pan. It's got some nice little bits on the bottom called the fond. Okay, I've pulled it over to the stove. I'm going to turn on the two burners that it's resting over. I'm going to turn that on high. And then I'm going to add just a little bit of water. You don't have to worry about really the amount. You don't want to add too much. But what we're going to do is that water is going to start to boil. And then we're just going to spend some time scraping the pan. You want to get all that fond off the bottom of the pan. And then we're going to pour that back in the stock. And you see, that's why we did not use the fat. We poured the fat off because we didn't want our stock to be really fatty. Everything's coming off really nicely. Now I've got all of the fond off the bottom. Everything looks really good. I'm just going to pour that water that has all those contents from the drippings just there in the pan. Okay, now I'm adding cold water to it. I put in right about a gallon of water, of ice cold or cold water. Now I'm going to turn this up to high. I want to bring this up to a boil, and then we're going to lower it to a simmer, and we're going to cook it for about 5 to 6 hours on the stovetop. Periodically skimming off any of the scum that comes to the top and discarding that.
Good.
Now we've got it up to a boil. Our next step is we're going to reduce it to a simmer, and we're going to skim off some of the scum that forms on the top. We'll do that periodically for about 5 to 6 hours is how long we're going to cook it. Now, I'm not putting a lid on it at all because what I wanted to do, I wanted to reduce, because when it reduces, the flavors become more concentrated. Don't worry if you get too much, too little, you can add more water back to it. I started off with about a gallon of water, and so it's going to cook down, and then periodically I'll check it to make sure. I just want to make sure all the bones and all the mirepoix are covered. Okay, now the stock has been on for about 4 hours. I'm going to make a sachet of some herbs that we're going to add, and that'll create an additional flavor to the stock. Typically on the sachet, you'll do the parsley, thyme, bay leaves, and black peppercorns, but I also wanted to get the taste of garlic in it as well. And so I put all of these in the center of some cheesecloth, and then we're just going to pull up the edges. And we're going to tie this off. We had that well secured. Now we're going to drop that in, but I've got a long leader on this. We're going to place it in, and then I'm going to tie on so we don't lose track of it. And it makes it a little easier so you don't have pieces of the herbs or the peppercorns floating in there and you've got to strain that out. So we just tie that on the edge. I'm going to submerge it. And we're going to let the stock go for another hour, maybe 2 hours, until it reaches its flavor. Hey, I just pulled the stock off the stovetop. It simmered for about it's closer to 6 hours. And what we're going to do is we're going to strain it. I have another stock pot here with a strainer that I have, so I'm just going to start taking it out. What I like to do is kind of put it in a container first. I don't want to overload the cheesecloth, but I also want to get as much of the juice as I can. Smells really good. I think leaving it on for that amount of time is really beneficial. You get a lot of the flavors out of it. And after we strain everything, the next step is really important because it's simmered all day and it's really hot right now. You want to make sure that you chill it down properly before you put it in the refrigerator. And what we're going to do, once I get it strained, we're going to put it in an ice bath in the sink and then stir it occasionally so it moves around and cools down much quicker. Okay, I've got most of the large pieces out, so now I'm going to gently pour it in and try to make sure that the cheesecloth doesn't fall in. When you wet the cheesecloth too, it helps it not to slide around. And I'm going to lift it up a little bit. I've got more room for the rest of it, and I'll pour that in. And now we're going to let it strain through the cheesecloth as well. This may take a few minutes for it to do, but it's all right. Stock all strained into another stock pot. I've got the water filling up, the sink filling up with cold water as well as ice. So I'm just going to rest that in there. I've got a little thing on the bottom of this sink that kind of elevates the pan a little off the bottom because you want the bottom resting flat on the sink. You want it raised up so water flows underneath it as well. I placed a spoon in the stock, so periodically I can stir it, but once I get it chilled down to the proper temperature, I'm going to cover it and put it in the refrigerator. By refrigerating overnight, all the fat will come to the top and I can take that off. And then we've got a number of uses that we're going to go into on our next video of what we're going to do with this stock that we make.